Yeah, so what I want to talk about today is about your hairline and worry lines and frown lines and what gua sha can or can't do, because this is an area which is kind of misunderstood quite a lot. So whether you do gua sha for health or relaxation, or whether you do facial gua sha for beauty reasons, so what I have to say kind of applies to everyone really. But what I want to show you is that by scraping within the hairline, so that I'm talking about, wherever the hairline is on your forehead, so within that hairline, so if we go into the hair, so that's actually a fundamental part of gua sha. And if you're not really doing that, what are you really doing? Because this is an area that holds so much of the things you want to change. So for example, if you want to change the face, if you want to change the forehead area, then this is an area that really is holding it into place. The scalp is holding the frontalis muscle together. But also there's a whole reason for treating anywhere within the hairline, because there's a whole microsystem involved within the hairline, but also there's interrelationships of fascia, which are incredibly complicated and are affected by the movement of your body in all kinds of different directions. And so this is why it's so important. When I mention using gua sha into the hairline, some people can be surprised and they don't realize that it's a good idea to go onto the scalp. And maybe you might think, okay, the scalp is really kind of hard. Why would I do gua sha on that area? And yes, it feels a bit hard when you touch it, but like the rest of your body, there's tissue underneath, and this is where gua sha really excels in affecting the tissue beneath the skin. And so when I say treat the scalp, I don't mean getting like a comb or a comb tool that are quite common to see, and then kind of dragging that comb tool over the top of your head. No, what I really mean, I mean gua sha. So I mean using a gua sha tool. And then what do I mean by a gua sha tool? Okay, a gua sha tool for me is a spoon, but it could be many other things. If you watch any of my videos, you'll see that I have spoons, and I have my own spoon that's actually handmade for me by someone in Barcelona. But any Chinese soup spoon will do for anything that I'm talking about. So it's very inexpensive when treating anywhere with gua sha. But in particular, what we're looking at right now is looking at the scalp. Now, when you look at those images of sha on the back that you might see if you look on the internet, or maybe you've done it yourself, or maybe someone else has had it done and you've seen it. And when you see this, you might understand why people might not readily think about scraping their heads, because you might think, my goodness, I don't really want that redness anywhere around my head where everyone can see. But it's pretty rare for sha to appear over the head area when you've got hair. So it can happen if you've got no hair up here. And then it's important to be aware of the use of lubricant and or perhaps be very gentle. And then the sha is not going to show. Because there are other videos and other material that I can explain more about why sha does appear, but sha will appear for a certain reason, and it's connected with the blood flow in the capillary bed underneath the skin, and that's why sha appears. It's not going to just appear anywhere. So there's got to be some reason for the tissue to express the sha, which I say express the sha, what I really mean is that the blood vessels will actually release red blood cells into the tissue bed. So to start off, we need to look at the structure underneath your scalp, because you might be thinking, well, there's not much there. So your forehead is actually made up of the frontalis muscle, which is this muscle which is causing the worry lines and the frown lines. And this is tensioned over the top of your head by the galea aponeurotic membrane, which kind of, it meets where your hairline would be if you did have hair, but if you do have hair, it's where your hairline is. And it stretches, it's very thin, kind of membranous structure, which connects at the back of your head to another muscular structure, which is the occipitalis muscle, which is kind of sitting at the back of your head. And this is essentially, it moves in one structure. And it's tensioned, and it's almost like two people pulling a skipping rope, but pulling either end, and the skipping rope is over the top of your head. And this is really what's happening over your scalp. And so the area of the scalp is really from the external occipital protuberance, which is this bony part at the back of your head, which kind of sticks out. And if you put your hand at the back of your head, you'll feel there's a knobbly part of the bone. And then it stretches all the way to your brow, above your eye socket. Now, if you do facial gua sha, then I'm sure you can see the importance of this structure on the forehead area. Because you can imagine if someone's stretching this area here or not stretching, then the frontalis muscle here is going to express onto the skin, and you're going to see stuff happening over time. And where the frontalis meets the galea aponeurotic membrane is right here, where the hairline is. And wherever two structures meet, there's often tendency for things to get stuck, because what we're talking about here is blood flow, which in terms of Chinese medicine, which I often talk about in terms of river systems. So it's kind of like a river going through rapids. And there's a tendency for something to happen when the river goes through the rapid part, and then it's going to go to the part which is very calm, which is the calm part is over the top of your head. But this is the rapids. The rapids are kind of right here, and this is where things get stuck. So underneath your skin isn't just bone on the scalp. There's a superficial fascia. There's the galea aponeurotic membrane, which is kind of made of collagen fiber. There's loose connective tissue. And there's the pericranium membrane, which is just sitting above the bone. And this means that when you scrape anywhere over the scalp, there's lots of potential for change, because you're connecting with blood circulation, the tensioning of fascia, the muscle chain across your head. And in fact, we can continue the fascia over the head at the neck area here, where the nuchal fascia meets the occipitalis fascia, which is just the occipitalis muscle around there, and that connects down the back, and going all the way down the erector spinae muscles. And in this way, it's a very real structure that your scalp is connected with the muscles and connective tissue structures, going all the way down your back. And if we wanted to continue that, we could also continue it down the glutes of your buttocks, down near your hamstrings and your calf and into your foot. So this whole area, which is actually going over the top of your head and coming down the back, is known in ecology and motion gua sha as the bladder river system, and is the connection of a group of muscles which are connected with a specific direction of movement. So if you bend yourself backwards, if you kind of do this, put your head, keep your head straight first of all, and then lean your head backwards, kind of like this. And then when you're doing that, what's happening is there's the chain reaction happening, going all the way from your brow, all the way going down your back. And if you're standing up, it's going to go all the way down your legs too. And so there's a structural group of muscles which are interrelated in how they move. And this is called the bladder river system. And with those structures, blood flows. It flows in different ways in different structures, just like water in rivers does within different environments. Large blood vessels, which are arteries and veins, cut through the body like expansive rivers. But much of the smaller tributaries that flow through connective tissue are more like the streams that flow down the valley into the river. These are the capillaries within the tissue bed. The whole system has a remarkable organization and was mapped by the ancient Chinese in a very elegant way. All the main, what they call young river systems, meet at your head. These are the huge rivers spanning the whole body, such as the bladder river, which goes all the way down your back to your little toe, or the stomach river, which goes all the way down the front of your body to the middle toes. These young rivers are those which are most accessible for gua sha and can be affected by scraping on the scalp near the hairline. With this connected knowledge, you may now be able to see how by scraping your head, you can make changes in how your lower back feels or your digestion, which kind of sounds a bit crazy. It sounds a bit, ooh, what's he talking about? If I do something on my head, my back feels better. That doesn't make any sense. That's not scientific. But it is. It really is. It is natural science as well as being scientific. And so what we're talking about is nothing magical. I'm not talking... I'm very much not talking about the magical meridians with energetic, invisible stuff flowing through them. What I'm talking about is actually something much more beautiful than that. I'm talking about the real stuff you can actually see if you open up the body, you cut open the body, you open it up, you have a look inside. That's the stuff you can see, because that's what the ancient Chinese were talking about. So when they were talking about meridians, they were talking about the arteries or the veins, which are at the bottom of the valley. And then when they were talking about the whole river system, the system of circulation of qi and blood, what they were talking about was actually the real circulation system. It was a very complicated microcirculation system in the capillary beds, which leads to kind of down the mountain like streams and heading down to the big river at the bottom, which is the artery and the vein. And so there's nothing mysterious about what I'm saying, and it should make perfect sense to you, because it's just based on natural science. So natural science is looking at the natural world, and that's what they were doing. They were looking at the natural world. They were looking at a valley system and just saying the same patterns as affect the environment of a valley are the same patterns which affect the blood circulation system in our bodies. Now we're going to have a look at treating the hairline, but there's one other important thing to realize when treating this area. And this again is following natural science, looking at nature, establishing principles and applying them in a correct way. This is where the idea of microsystems comes from. It's the idea that each part of your body has an aspect of the whole body within it. And you may be familiar with this idea with reflexology on the feet, which is a microsystem, which is fairly well known and popular. And sometimes this is really visible, like the shape of a fetus on the ear. So if you've ever come across an image of the ear and it has like a fetus projected onto it, and then has kind of points on it that you can either press, or you can put like needles in and put press studs on them. But there's also something similar on the scalp as there are in many other areas. And again, this is nothing magical. There's nothing unusual about a microsystem, because microsystems are following the natural order of how things are basically in the universe, or on our planet too. There's a certain structure, and it's very common that things kind of look like the greater thing, the smaller you go, or the larger you go. You know, let's just take a tree, for example. You know, look at a leaf. If you have a look at that leaf and you look at the structure of the leaf, it looks exactly like the tree. And so, you know, there's kind of imprints of the larger thing on the smaller thing. This is a large area. I mean, it's very large. I wrote a whole book just on this. So I'm not going to explain it in great detail, but it's just to tell you that I'm not just like dragging this out of thin air. So within the scalp area, there are zones which correspond to parts of your body. And if those zones are active, which means they kind of feel a bit sore or tender, then treatment of them can have an effect on a related body part. So for example, the middle of the top of your forehead. So the middle of the top of your forehead basically means go to the middle of the in between the eyebrows, above your nose, and go straight up until you hit the hairline. If you don't have hair, you're going to go to the place where your hairline probably was. And when you hit that area there, just go into the hair, so not actually onto the skin of the forehead. And there you're going to come across the zone of the head, the face, and the throat. And then if you're going to come across, again, draw kind of following the line of your hairline, which is generally kind of a slightly circular movement. and you go along about an inch, a couple of centimeters, and then you're going to come to the chest area, and then you go another inch or a couple of centimeters, you're going to come across the digestive zone, and then you're going to come across the lower abdomen. And then when people do gua sha, so here I've got my gua sha tool, and if you were going to come across the forehead area, then when you come to the area which is related to digestion, which is roughly, if you're looking straight ahead and you draw a line from your eye straight up through the middle of the eyebrow and then come to that area, corresponding area on your hairline, then that will be roughly the area of digestion. So if you're going to come across here and then you kind of work that area. Now, some people can feel slightly nauseous here, and that would make kind of sense. And again, it's not this magic thing where I push here and then suddenly something amazing happens in my stomach. It's what's happening is there's a relationship with the circulation system, which is, so when I say circulation system, I'm including the nervous system, the blood circulation system, the lymphatic system, whatever the system of the circulation of fluids or blood in the body, and also messages going around. Then there's something that's happening within that which is related to what's happening in the stomach area. So let's get practical. So what do you do to release this area of your hairline? Well, first of all, what you're going to do is you're going to put the tool in that place where the head area of your hairline is. So come straight up the middle. In between your eyebrows, imagine there's a line which divides your forehead into two. Go straight up that line and then come into the hairline. And then you're just going to circle, and you're going to move the circle, and you're just coming along the hairline and then coming towards the ear until you get to the temple area. But at the temple area, just stop, because it gets quite sensitive in some people in this area. So just basically you're going to stop when you come to the edge of the frontalis, which is roughly at the end of your eyebrow. And then after doing a couple of circles, then you can just scrape. So what do I mean by scrape? Scrape is scrape, like this, literally scrape. So if you want to know the actual translation of gua from gua sha, then it means scrape, and so that's what you're doing with gua sha. If you're not scraping, you're not probably doing gua sha. So scraping along the hairline, and you can carry on doing that. So first of all, circle, and then scrape, and you're coming towards the ear. This is the area that gets stuck a lot on your scalp. Remember, it's where things meet. It's going through the rapids of the river system, and the river system actually is the bladder system, which is kind of coming up from the brow over the top of your head and coming down your back. So if you aren't doing gua sha over the head, you're really missing a whole chunk of what gua sha is. Certainly if you're doing facial gua sha. And if you are doing facial gua sha, you're kind of doing a disservice to a facial treatment if you don't think about why the face is as it is, and not just have this simplistic idea of, well, I'm lifting, I'm tugging, I'm sculpting. So do you need a specially shaped tool to scrape over your head? And I'm thinking like comb, because I see combs quite a lot. No, you don't. As you can see here, this is not a comb, it's a spoon. Now this is one of my spoons, so these are made in Barcelona by an artist for me, but you can use any Chinese soup spoon as long as it feels comfortable on your head. Or you can use any tool you like, but there's no benefit in terms of ecology and motion. There's absolutely no benefit to using a comb over your head. But as long as it has a smooth edge suitable for gua sha and it doesn't hurt you. Now, and also remember, you do need to lubricate your head if you don't have hair on your head, or if you don't have hair in this section where the hairline is normally. If you do have hair, you don't generally need lubrication. The area of your head that I'm referring to is the natural hairline, so that from the top of your forehead to the nape of your neck. So be careful with that, because you might get the redness of sha appear on a head which doesn't have hair. And of course, you have to follow the general guidelines of gua sha, which if you're not sure about, you're going to find these guidelines in lots of places. They're in most of my books, and scrape comfortably and safely over the head. And how often should you do this? Every single day. If you're doing it on yourself, every day, as you should be doing the whole of your head every single day.